In 2015, the physical reality of New Delhi's atmosphere reached a breaking point. Dense smog blanketed the India Gate, and suspended particulate matter triggered severe respiratory crises across the local population. The World Health Organization quantified the severity of these conditions, officially ranking Delhi as the 11th most polluted city on Earth. The local atmospheric reality was now an internationally recognized data point. The regulatory response was swift and severe. The Supreme Court of India, alongside the National Green Tribunal, banned older diesel vehicles entirely and halted the registration of new ones. This line chart tracks the exact economic consequence of that ruling. Indian automakers hit a steep cliff drop, instantly losing 2% of their total monthly sales volume. Those automakers did not lose their market share due to an engineering failure or poor marketing. The sudden collapse in sales was caused by a complete inability to navigate overwhelming external forces. Management theorists Keith Davis and Arthur Weimer define the business environment as the aggregate of all conditions and influences that surround and affect a firm. It is the sum total of every force operating strictly outside the control of the enterprise. This boundary separates internal and external forces. Inside the glowing circle are the variables a company controls: capital, personnel, and policies. Outside lies a highly active, chaotic space. Every new regulation or economic shift acts as a physical force pressing against the firm. These external forces generate the strict constraints that restrict operations, while simultaneously creating the vital market opportunities required for growth. To maintain a viable company, management must map and understand this dynamic external matrix before accurately forecasting a single dollar of future revenue. To organize this external chaos, we place a single automaker at the center. The inner ring contains specific forces: customers, competitors, investors, exerting direct impact. The outer ring introduces general forces: massive social, political, and legal shifts, exerting comprehensive effects on the entire system. Returning to the 2015 Delhi case study, the Supreme Court's diesel ban was a general force. It was a macro-level legal ruling born from a societal health crisis. The ban exposes a critical vulnerability for any enterprise. Broad general forces have the power to instantly override and neutralize micro-level specific forces, like individual consumer demand. A firm's survival is dictated by how it chooses to interface with these external pressures. Management theory identifies 3 core approaches to this interaction. This flowchart illustrates the system approach: extracting materials to output goods. Adding return vectors creates the social responsibility approach, acknowledging societal obligations. When a blockage like emission laws appears, the creative approach bypasses it, redirecting capital toward new opportunities. An organization cannot simply pull resources from a vacuum. Long-term viability requires actively adapting to the societal obligations generated by the environment. Moving from theoretical models to operational reality, we find that successfully navigating the business environment is complicated by 5 specific behavioral features. The first feature is aggregative. External forces act as an inseparable totality. You cannot isolate one economic metric or social trend and analyze it in a vacuum. This network web tracks the second feature, interrelated. A shift in one element triggers a reaction in another. Applying this to the diesel ban, international WHO health data triggered the Supreme Court, which mandated the 2% sales collapse. The third feature is relativity. Environmental conditions are not universal. The regulatory and social constraints in New Delhi differ drastically from those in London or New York. The fourth feature is uncertainty. The extreme pace of legislative action and technological advancement makes forecasting future states a constant challenge. The fifth feature is complex. Calculating exactly how multiple, intersecting macro factors will eventually trickle down to impact final consumer demand requires analyzing thousands of moving variables. Because the environment is aggregative, highly interrelated, and complex, static business planning fails. Strategic agility becomes the only viable defense. We can now compress these forces, approaches, and features into a single, unified operating reality. This visualizes the ultimate integration matrix. At the core, the business layer operates subordinate to the broader economy. Moving outward, the people layer dictates that social demographics constrain that economic activity. Finally, the outermost nature layer represents the physical and ecological limits containing everything inside. Every strategic action an enterprise takes, from pricing a product to building a factory, is ultimately bound by these economic, human, and natural constraints. The business environment serves as a dual-edged sword. It generates the regulations that limit scale, but also the consumer demands that enable profit. This manufacturing scale requires immense capital. The 2015 Delhi ban is a permanent warning that ignoring external forces places this physical infrastructure at severe risk. Because the environment surrounding a firm is infinitely complex and constantly changing, organizational survival cannot be treated as a fixed achievement. Rather, it is an active, continuous state. The most resilient organizations maintain a posture of constant sensing. They forecast external volatility and aggressively realign their internal controls to match. Long-term strategic management demands a relentless, healthy interaction with the outside world, a continuous loop of reading external shifts and executing necessary creative adaptations.